Okay, welcome back. Shadowdark, solo role Mangging, Barrowmaze. Yeah, bit of a rough start last time, for sure. Not super easy, but remember that I'm thinking of running this with Shadow the Weird Wizard, which is far more powerful of a character system. So, 2 characters against 7 skeletons, not as big of a deal compared to doing it in Shadowdark or OSE or something. But we all survived, and that's mostly what matters. Just spell casting was a little rough there. But we're going to move on. We're going to go back into the dungeon and continue forward. Before we do that, I did actually grab the rule book for Tales of Argosa, which is technically a second edition of a game called Low Fantasy Gaming, which I had never really heard of or looked at. And this is the second edition that has, I think, much more polish and identity. I don't think the title is super great. It feels a little too specific of a title. It's like, what's Argosa? Where's Argosa? What's all about Argosa? Like, I feel like I'm meant to play in the specific setting of Argosa and stuff like that, compared to a game like Shadowdark or Swords and Wizardry or Labyrinth Lord or something. It's all pretty generic. But anyways, so I've been looking over this, not super far. I didn't get super far yet. I looked through classes and the core rule concepts, equipment, combat, stuff like that. So I haven't looked at spells yet. So far, I would say, yeah, it kind of is a crunchier Shadowdark. It's definitely not as rules light at all as Shadowdark, but I think it evokes a lot of the same concepts. It's sort of new SR, in the sense of meant to be evocative and very highly reminiscent of what people think Dungeons and Dragons is and classic D&D gaming, while having a lot of modern sensibilities. More so than Shadowdark, I think. So the core... I don't want to go too much into Tales of Argosa, but I mentioned it last time, and I am looking more into it, so we'll probably do a deeper dive at some point, but it's actually a roll under system, which I think is really interesting, that I haven't played almost at all. So, like, you have a 16 strength, and you do a strength roll. You're trying to roll under 16. That's a strength check. It's not just a d20 plus, like, 3. So, that means that stats, attributes are quite important, and every point of an attribute is a bonus, is a big deal. There is still attribute modifiers that are used for some things like combat, as well as luck rolls. Luck rolls are essentially equivalent to saving throws. So to like dodge a fireball or something, you'd make a luck roll modified by your dex. So everyone has a luck number, which is usually like 11. And so then to succeed, you got to roll under it, on a luck roll. So it basically starts at like 50-50. But if it's a luck dex roll, you add your dex modifier to that 11. So then like a dex 2 plus 2 dex modifier, you'd have to roll 13 or less instead of 11 or less. But then whenever you succeed on a luck roll, you actually reduce it by 1 point. So your luck kind of runs out as time goes on. And it restores very slowly, 1 point per long rest. So you don't want to rely on too much luck, but it is there, and it's gonna happen. And then much like DCC, you can have luck like target specific, whoever has the lowest luck among the group can be targeted by some bullshit and blah blah blah. Yeah, I think that's all pretty interesting. And then health starts pretty high. A first level Constitution 13 fighter will start play with 16 hit points, which is quite high. But then it levels out very quickly. It has a very flat curve. Each level, a fighter's only going to gain 3. And that's like the highest. You know, a mage is only going to gain 1 HP every level. And it caps out at 9th level by default. So you're mostly going to be kind of in this 20 to 30 range for a lot of the gameplay for most classes and stuff. So it's a pretty flat curve, which means that most enemies are kind of always a threat. You know, you're never going to scale out of that range, really, which is pretty interesting. And then getting into the classes, there's a lot of just, like, very core sort of classes here, like the Barbarian, the Bard, the Rogue, the Fighter, the Mage, the Priest or Cleric, which is called a Cultist here. But then you also have, like, the Artificer, which is kind of strange, and they do include the Monk and Ranger as well. So there's, like, 9 classes, and they all are very... I don't think there's much here that's like, holy shit, this is weird and wild and so different. Most of this is very much like what you'd expect. But then classes get, like, quite a bit of options, I guess, even at first level. Well, especially at first level, I suppose. Like, the Fighter gets adaptable. So he's all about all these different types of fighting styles, like two-handed, single weapon, ranged, protector, long reach, charger. He starts with a number of styles equal to his strength mod, but then he gets one every level. So eventually he's going to have probably all the styles, and he can kind of change these in the midst of combat if he wants to get a, you know, very different style depending on the situation. I don't know how much you're really going to be swapping mid-combat, depending on... I mean, some of these are kind of good, and some of them, like Expert Guard, if you roll a 1 on an attack roll and fumble, critical miss, you can just activate this style to make it an ordinary miss instead. So, you know, there's stuff like that. And then they also get Deadly Strike, where their crit range is 19 to 20 instead of 20. Oh yeah, so combat is not roll under. Combat against defense and stuff like that is standard, like plus your mod, whatever, on a d20 to roll higher than their AC. So that's a little annoying, but, you know, it's a small concession, and I agree it's probably the best choice, so whatever. But then every class at 3rd, 6th, and 9th level gets a unique feature, which is one of the most interesting parts here, is that you get to just design an ability and pick, you know, a concept, you know, just a feature for your character. Every 3rd level, devise one new ability, trait, or theme for your adventurer. Feel free to borrow feats, class abilities, perks, and so on from other games modified to suit Tales of Argosa. Need not be limited to traditional class themes, allowing for a degree of multi-classing. And it requires some table discussion to keep things balanced and consistent with the genre of your campaign. So yeah, you kind of have to work with your DM to come up with just some unique ability or trait or feat that you have. And they do give a decent list of stuff that you could pick if you don't want to have any creativity. And some of these are definitely very basic, just like mechanical benefits. Like you gain proficiency in the next level of heavier armor or shields, you know. Or when you're using daggers or knives, they cause an extra... No, they cause 1d6 damage and maybe thrown, or you increase the crit range. You know, basic mechanical benefits. Or they can be like weird, wild, like magical abilities that no one else can do or something like that. Like, Faustian Pact or something. You can just cast any spell you want if you make a pact with an immortal being beyond the veil. or you become a master of faces and stuff. I mean, this list could just be completely usable if you just want to take some of this stuff. This is all valid options, and no matter what your class is, you can pick any of this stuff, you know. Or you can come up with something entirely unique. I think this is probably one of the highlights of the whole thing for me, because I love coming up with unique stuff specifically for my characters when I play, and I think I'd have definitely players that would want to come up with unique shit for themselves. You know, it is obviously very vague. It definitely requires a decent DM that knows the limits and stuff of what they want to allow. But yeah, I think it's really cool. That's pretty much all I want to talk about for now. But yeah, a lot of what I see here, I actually really like. So far, I didn't see much that's like, oh boy, I'd want to change that real fast. I like a lot of what I see. Is it better than Shadowdark? I mean, that's impossible for me to say at this point. But like I said, it seems like just a somewhat crunchier version with more defined classes and abilities, and definitely a slightly higher power scale. I didn't really look at the dying rules or anything. After the fight or encounter, if character's body is recovered and inspected, PC makes a death save. On a success, character is dying. On a failure, the adventurer really is dead and gone. Okay, so if they hit 0, they're out for the whole fight. There's no option until after the fight, and then you roll to see if you actually survived or not. And it's equal to or under of 10 plus your con or will mod. So by default, you're probably looking at like 10 or 11. So it's kind of 50-50. But if healing magic is applied, it's a +2 to the save. So then it's equal to or under like 12 or 13 for most characters. So it's slightly better than even odds to survive going down to 0. Which is kind of harsh. Definitely kind of harsh. Compared to even Shadowdark, where you're down for maybe a few rounds and you can just be stabilized by anybody to not die. So, yeah, I don't know. But I still think it's pretty interesting. So we'll probably look at this in more detail at some point and run through some sort of little adventure. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that real quick. Real quick being 13 minutes. All right, but let's get back into Barrowmaze. We descend down the rope into darkness again. And we're going to cast light on the shield. Failure. Great. Starting it off real hot. Alright, well, at least we have a light for an hour. Or 10 rounds. I don't know if the underclock is meant to reset. When you leave a dungeon. I mean, I know they had other thoughts about what happens when you leave a dungeon. Treasure. The biggest treasure pile in the dungeon loses 20% of its value. Yeah, I'm not going to go through Barrowmaze and calculate what the biggest treasure pile is and then deduct 20% and remember that. So, fuck all that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we can just reset it. Yeah. So we'll just bump it back to 20. It's fine. And we descend down to 1. And we're going to go down the hallway a bit here. Same marching order, obviously. And we're going to go to room number 4 here. And we will listen at the door as usual. We do not hear anything of any kind, so we will crack it open. Scope it out, which means we're going to roll on the underclock. 6, which explodes. It's down 7. It's a hefty hit to the underclock. So that reveals that room, and nothing but debris littering the floor. Okay, so we're gonna go look down the hallway some more. Now this right here, see, secret door. This is why you would never use this map for your players, because you can't have that. Well, I mean, you could if your players are good at not metagaming, but you'd have to be real good at not metagaming to just ignore that. But alright, we're going to do the same. We're going to listen to door number 5. Now, in here, we have 11 giant rats foraging for food. Okay, so we would definitely hear some, like, munching and squeaking sounds and stuff like that. We'd hear movement, blah, blah, blah. I think... If not knowing that it's rats, you'd probably know that it's some sort of group of animals. So we have to decide if we want to fight a group of animals. The thing is, this room actually does have treasure. 123 silver pieces, which is a good amount for sure. But we've already, fought off 7 skeletons and got jack shit for it. So wanting to go into this room to fight who knows what creatures and how many of them for potentially nothing again. I mean, we do get XP for defeating enemies. I think what we would do... Okay, this is what we're going to do. We've got a door here. We're assuming that it's some kind of animal. So what we're going to do is just kind of crack open the door and look in. And see what we see. So, depending on the angle of the door here, I have no idea. We might see that or something. Yeah, who knows. I think we would then see giant rats foraging for food. I don't know how the giant rats got into this room. I mean, what are you going to say about that? At that point, if someone asks that question, it's like, okay, how did they get into this room? Then you have to come up with an answer, and you have to say, well, there's these pretty giant holes in the walls and stuff that they're crawling through. If we're assuming that all these doors are like actually solid doors, how the fuck did 11 rats get into this room? Tell me, designer. Please tell me. Now, it is true that we always assume doors are closed in a dungeon. It's just like always a default. Every door you find is just closed. And it's like, wouldn't a lot of doors just be open? I know why we have every door closed. It's so that everything is kind of segmented off and you can just go one by one through rooms. And you don't just have... I mean, imagine if all these doors were just open. You'd have to think about line of sight everywhere. And like here, we'd be looking into this room and looking into this room, and it'd just be... It would be chaos. It would be anarchy. So I kind of get it. But, yeah, I mean, having this door be open would kind of answer that question. But would also potentially cause more problems. So I think it's better to just say that there's like a giant, not a giant, but definitely like a small hole in the base of the wall there, if it mattered, if someone asked or something like that. All right, so, but we can see a door here. We went in here, so we know there's a door here. So theoretically, we could maybe go around through that other room into whatever's beyond there, and then, assuming we survive that, we could then open this door and try and lead the rats out. But the question is, why then we lead the rats out? I think it's like will giant rats just attack adventurers? Are giant rats that aggressive that they will just attack human, like a group of humans? I think if we were to throw down food or something. I don't know, I'm just kind of seeing... Giant rats are obviously one of the most common RPG, D&D sort of enemies in history. And it's just like, it's always... Just assume that you encounter giant rats and they just attack you, they leap on you and attack you. I don't know. I guess the idea here is that they are hungry. They're starving. And this does look like a viable meal. But I think if you gave them food, I mean, they'd probably just mostly ignore you. I think you could lure them out or lead them away with food. But that would imply that we have food, which I guess we do have rations. Would I have seen the sack as I looked in? Yeah, okay. We'll say that I did. There's 11 rats sort of just sniffing around the room, looking around. They all looked up with curiosity and hunger when the door cracked open. We saw the other door. We saw a sack on the ground, blah, blah, blah. Well, prismatic armor has a 66% chance when we activate it to terrify wild animals. So that would really solve our problems. And if we get the attract instead, then we'll just ignore it and move on. Well, we just won't touch this room for a while. But I think let's try the prismatic armor, because that is very likely the easiest solution to this whole problem. Alright, we got a success, so we kept the spell. Our AC becomes 15 for 8 fucking rounds. And we will roll a d6. 3. Alright, it terrifies wild animals and monsters of low intelligence. So Trepa will just open the door with a flourish, blasting light into the room, and the rats squeak and panic in a frenzy, rushing through that hole in the wall and, you know, squishing each other and Gojira, Gojira, you know, sort of thing. Problem solved. Now, does that count as defeating the monsters? Yes. Yes, it does. It certainly frickin' does. That's the whole point of that. We defeated that room. We conquered that encounter, and we got the loot. That's called defeating monsters. How much is they worth? Oh boy. It's 1d4 hit die, which I think is going to correspond to less than 1, so there's 11 of them, 55 XP, added on to the 70 XP from the skeletons so far. Should I keep a running total here? Skeletons 70, 11 rats, 55. Okay. And we will loot the coins, which is our first treasure, 123 silver pieces, which corresponds to 12 gold, so 12 XP among our 4 characters, 3 XP each. It's not very much, but 12 gold is kind of nice to have for when Yuri fucks up more spells. And we're gonna roll on the underclock for that. D6. 3. Alright, it's at 10. Okay. Room solved. Now we're gonna listen to room number 6. Make sure you listen at every door. It's very important. This room is empty. 3 polished skulls sit on a dusty table. The secret door leads to a small area where a tomb robber crawled away from combat and died. He wears a dark yellow striped tunic. In his bony hands, he still holds a torch stub and a bag with 15 platinum pieces. Now, okay. So, we don't hear anything. So, we're going to slowly creak the door open. Again, like, you would not use this map for players. Gives it all away. And so this room is empty, but we do see 3 polished skulls sitting on a dusty table. Polished skulls. Boy, it's kind of creepy. And again, we as a DM know that there's nothing going on with these skulls by default. Players will not know that, though. And will definitely be quite likely to become interested in the 3 polished skulls. They may take them with them. You know, they may ask them questions. They may smash them. Who knows? Now, do you as a DM go off module, go off book, and make something happen because of any of those things? It's up to you. At the end of the day, it's up to what you want to do and what the players would enjoy, really. I think there is something to be said about avoiding kind of a I don't know, a very like narrative kind of experience, like a book or a movie or something, where basically everything has a purpose. Everything is some sort of Chekhov's skull, you know. Nothing is placed anywhere without reason. And so if anything the players become interested in has a purpose because they're interested in it, then that's what that becomes. Like, all they have to do is become interested in something and suddenly it's useful, whereas normally it wouldn't be. On the flip side, if there's too much just like nothing, there's too many things in the world that just serve no purpose and are just there for like decoration, players are just gonna stop interacting with the world, because it's like, what's the point? You know, there's just so much shit that's just like, okay, thanks for telling me, let's move on. So I don't know, I think there's got to be a balance there somewhere. don't go too far in one direction or the other, I think. And a lot of that just is going to depend on the group and the table and the specific situation. You know, if they just smash these skulls, maybe it's nothing. I mean, in that case, maybe, you know, maybe they're not punished. Maybe it's just nothing, and okay, you smashed them. But if they start becoming very interested in it and start carrying them with them, and, you know, who knows what, maybe that is something, you know, because players are going to be drawn to things and try to do things and interact with things that they are interested in, that they want to see be part of the game. So I don't think, you know, playing into that from time to time is that bad. Even if, you know, normally you had no intention of doing anything with those skulls. You know. So, anyways. Now here's the real kicker. There's a secret door in this room. But if we didn't search the other two rooms, why would we search this room? So I think this door is going to be often pretty missable unless the group is just searching every room. Now, that is a good thing with the skulls, though, because that is a different feature. There is something different to this room than those other two exact same size rooms. So I think the skulls alone actually might trigger a group to do a search of this whole room, which is a pretty interesting touch there of like DMing and planning and stuff. That's not too shabby at all. Would I search? I don't know. Let's do just an oracle roll. Well, first of all, let me do the underclock for going into this room. Uh-oh. Exploded. 11. Ooh, boy. We triggered. We triggered the underclock. I'm pretty certain. Yeah, if it drops below 0, an encounter is triggered and then goes back to 20. All right, so let's do our encounter. This is guaranteed. Now, I wasn't really that worried about it. It was at like 10. And so I didn't think we'd get an 11 drop suddenly. But now we have to roll for a random encounter. So we're going to be rolling this D12 list. 3. So we have Tomb Robbers. Okay, 2d4 plus 4 Tomb Robbers. So 9 of them. A big old fucking pack of Tomb Robbers. Now, does a random encounter guarantee that we encounter these things? Or does it just carry a strong likelihood of us encountering them? Basically, like, if they're coming down here and it's like, okay, you hear a large amount of footsteps coming from down the hall. I think that's probably more how I would do it. Because they're in not a good situation. They're in this room. The door's open. If they close it, it's going to be seen. They could try and just huddle up against the wall and put out their torch. But then they put out their torch, you know? And that's still no guarantee that they're not going to be noticed because the door's open and there's multiple doors open here. And it's like, it's going to be tough to leave. There's 9 of these guys coming. So I think that's how I would do it rather than just like, you look out the door and suddenly there's 9 men standing there. Because this gives a little bit more player agency because they could just come out and chat and she'd be like, hey, what are you doing here? Or they could try and hide, or they could just go into fighting mode or something like that. The problem is, in our situation, Trepa has prismatic armor equipped. So there is no hiding that. It becomes impossible to hide, sneak, or escape notice while this spell is active. So what solved the rat problem is now creating a new problem for us. So, yeah, you know, the DM would say that, okay, down the hall, back from, the direction of the rope, you start to hear footsteps and you see torchlight and some low voices. And we all look at Trepa like, God damn it. There's... fuck. So I think we don't have much choice here. I think we're probably gonna have our weapons out, but like lowered, We're not gonna be like battle ready or anything. It definitely does not sound like skeletons, and there's torchlight, so chances are humans. And if they're down here for similar reasons than us, maybe this can be somewhat amicable, even though it sounds like we're quite outnumbered, and we are. But hopefully this doesn't have to go too poorly. So we're gonna have our weapons out, but lowered, and we're gonna step out into the hallway, and we both just look at each other's groups. And so now I roll a reaction roll. The big time reaction roll. This is going to be modified by Aran's charisma, as he's just like, hello there. Pleasure, nice day for dungeon crawling. And so let me find the reaction roll, even though I probably want to go with Axe reaction rolls anyways. But it's the same basic concept. 2d6 plus his charisma plus 3, which is pretty great. All right, 11. So according to Shadowdark's table, they are curious. According to Axe, they are indifferent or uninterested. Again, I think that's one of the most startling differences between these two tables. Let me just look real quick at OSC's reaction table. Same thing. Indifferent may negotiate. Okay, so Shadowdark, definitely a bit more positive spin on it there, but obviously not hostile. Not particularly interested in what we're doing here. They probably don't want to like join forces or anything like that. They have their group and we have ours. But they're definitely not looking to fight with other humans here. And we were here first. So I think we'd probably share information. We'd probably be pretty open as well and amicable. Tell them that we encountered some skeletons up there. There was a trap door. There was a whole bunch of rats that we scared off in this room here. There's some weird polished skulls in this other room, but we haven't really been here long, so we don't have much to say. And they have a big group. I mean, there's 9 of them. So they are definitely going for the more strength in numbers approach. It's a very curious thing here, because I don't know, what would be their approach? I guess if we don't offer any sort of negotiation of like wanting to join forces, I think maybe they would think, I'm gonna go with this route. Just because it's also easier. I think it's the easiest option for a friendly thing, that if no one's offering any sort of other plans, is they're gonna think like, okay, these fools are probably gonna get themselves killed. There's only 4 of them. So we'll just camp out up top and then kind of just wait a little while, like wait a few hours for us to die. And then, they'll come in and pick up our loot and our, scavenge our corpses and stuff, and then they'll have the place to themselves. So yeah, they're willing to just give us a few hours, and it's like, well, you can take your turn, and then once you come back out, you know, we'll take our turn, and we can share information. And unless Iran has a real big problem with that, I think that's a perfect thing, and I don't have to worry about, you know, some other group that's actively moving through the dungeon. I mean, you could do it that way. That like, okay, well, we're gonna go this way. You're welcome to follow us if you want, but we're gonna head, you know, down to room 20, and then I could look at room 20 on Barrowmaze and just see what they encounter and how they would handle it, and then you could kind of alter things. So 20 is empty. Then there's D1, which is Defiled Crypt 1. So they'd fight 4 zombies, and I'd have to think about, okay, well, there's 9 of them. These zombies are kind of tough, though. Sort of. Well, they have low AC. They have 14, 11, 9, 8 hit points and do 1d8 damage, so they definitely possibly kill a couple of them. And so you'd lose that. They'd probably take that necklace, though. And then they'd move on, you know, to like 18 or 19 or something. They'd basically just get some easy loot, to be honest. Yeah. So you could do it that way and just send them in a direction and try and figure out what they encounter and how well they do and if they make it out alive or, you know, something like that. But it's a lot easier if they just kind of wait it out. And then maybe... Yeah, I don't know. It depends. Like, if we actually do make it out and we come back out and we're, like, carrying loot or something, maybe their reaction would change. And they think, okay, these guys are kind of capable, but if we jump them right now, maybe we can handle this. I don't know. We'd see. Maybe I would do another reaction roll at that point, but... If we're, like, running for our lives and we're, like, carrying our wounded and stuff, they'd be like, oh, shit. Well, they kind of got what they had coming, but now it's our turn. And then I'd probably... at that point, I probably would just hand wave it. If the group was leaving for the day or something like that, I'd probably just hand wave it. The other Tomb Raiders go in, and we later find their corpses somewhere in one of these rooms, you know? And just don't sweat it too much. But alright, anyways. I think that was our encounter. A pretty benign one, but that definitely can be the case when you're using random encounters with reaction rolls. It shouldn't always lead to combat. Alright. Will we search this room at this point? Let's roll an Oracle. I think it's going to be unlikely, so I'm going to roll with disadvantage. So I need 11 or higher on both. Nope. Okay. So we're not going to search the room. We're going to move on, and we're going to... So normally we'd be at 7, but you'd have to search this hallway, and I think that's pretty unlikely. Unless I have good reason to search the hallway. There's not even anything in room 7. So you'd find a secret door here, and you'd... Oh, alright, we found a secret door. Yes, and you crack it open, and you find a wooden bucket of fresh human scalps. With a small pile of rags piled on the floor. It's like, god damn. Not only is that not treasure, it's also just shit. Then there's room number 8, and this is actually a broken wall. Which is kind of weird, because this is like an entirely sealed off room. So that's I think this is okay. They would see just like a broken section of wall here, and they'd look in and they'd find it to be completely empty, and they'd figure out that the wall was broken from the inside, and there's otherwise no door or anything to this room. That's probably a room that they might search. because it's just like, what the fuck is going on here? But there's really nothing going on there. We do roll underclock, though. 2. Okay. I don't know what this is meant to be. What the hell is this thing? It's like a piano or something. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's a B. Oh, it's a B. The letter B. Burial alcoves. Huh. Was that mentioned at some point that I should know what that means? Barrowmaze is filled with rooms that contain burial niches and alcoves of all shapes and sizes. Some are filled with spiderwebs and bones, some have been plundered, others contain wondrous treasures. When player characters decide to search burial alcoves, the referee must keep close track of time. Burial alcove entries look like this. Total number is listed in parentheses, 145. One character can search 1 burial alcove in 1 round, or 10 in 1 turn. Okay. That's what that means. Oh, and there's also bricked up walls. Bricked up. Block entry to tombs of import require at least 1 sledgehammer to penetrate. Attack hammer's too small, and a melee-style warhammer will be damaged beyond repair. Do they risk bashing the wall down and making noise? Will anything come out of the wall and attack them from behind if they pass it? At least 1 random monster roll. Yeah, so obviously an underclock roll. Okay, so I think that B then stands for bricked up. Which would make more sense. Yeah, I think that's bricked up. There's another one here. And there's another one there. So yes, okay, so we see there's a bricked up wall there. And we don't have a means of smashing that down. We don't have a sledgehammer. I'd have to figure out how much a sledgehammer cost. I think it said, didn't it? Fuck. Fuck. $5 gold. Is that a reasonable price in Shadowdark? I think that's reasonable enough. Maybe a little high, but I think it's fine. Because a lantern costs 5 gold. Backpack costs 2. I mean, it's sort of the average price of a melee weapon. Like a mace is 5 gold. So yeah, I think that's reasonable. All right. So we'd have to go back to Civilization, but spend 5 gold on a sledgehammer to smash through this. All right, but we're gonna again kind of follow order somewhat and go up here down this hallway. Find another bricked up wall there. And then we find a few dots. What? Was ist das? Does not say. I'm supposed to just intuit what that is. Is it a beaded curtain? Fuck. I guess it might be a partial collapse. I don't see any other indicator of like a different type of wall or something. But I'm not quite sure. Kind of want to look at the other map that we had. Hold on. View scene. Okay, so that would be this. Fuck is that? What is that? It's not mentioned at all in the description. Is it like a metal gate or something? Well, it's not a partial collapse or anything, so... I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, but obviously it's not that important, so... forget it. But yeah, so we step into room 9 here. Since it's kind of open-ish. But it's completely empty! Nothing of note at all in here except for a secret door. Again, I just can't imagine that we would search. It just seems so ridiculous. But I'll do the Oracle roll just... I don't know, because you never know. I gotta do a d6 underclock, so another 3. We're down to 15. And we will do the Oracle roll with disadvantage, because I think it's unlikely. 12-5, okay, we don't search. What are we missing out on? 145 burial alcoves. And 6 zombies. And the alcoves contain a total of 94 silver and a silver bracelet worth 20 gold. So overall, not massive amount of goodies. But those zombies are hit dice 2. Which would be a decent amount of XP, but yeah, we're not searching. So then we have the also 11 is this hallway. This hallway has 3 crypt entrances on the north wall, a portcullis on the it's a portcullis. Portcullis. So it's an open portcullis, or do we think it's a stuck portcullis? I don't know. What's more interesting, I guess? I guess just make it open. And then we have 3 quiet crypts. So we're gonna poke our head into the first one. Crypt is empty, door is closed, and there's graffiti. We won't worry about that. The second one, however, I think we have to roll underclock for like all this shit. So we'll roll underclock for this one. Down to 10. So it's very possible to happen here. Then this second door is ajar. Ooh. Very ominous. We are... just a second. Okay. Right. So, in this room, there is a crab spider hanging on the ceiling, waiting to ambush the first character to enter the room. Now, this module actually, I think, handles this really well by having it in the room on the other side of a door, and specifically noting that the door is ajar. Because that's a detail that I think even a very new DM will probably mention. Because it's the first line of text here. So, yeah, again, I think even the most newbie OSR kind of DM will specifically mention, oh yeah, the door here is actually ajar. And that's immediately going to send almost certainly all sorts of warning signals to players because doors are practically never ajar, as we mentioned. And this telegraphs then that there is probably something, or very potentially something dangerous on the other side. And I was kind of a bit perplexed with a different module that I was looking through. I think it was Hole in the Oak. Yeah, Hole in the Oak. Very popular OSE adventure. Kind of a, a sprawling little dungeon. And at one point there's a hallway and there's like an arch. And on the other side of the arch on the ceiling is I think it's also a giant crab spider. And I was really like, and the crab spider drops down and attacks somebody, the first person, and it poisons them and blah, blah, blah. And it's very likely to be lethal. It was like, okay, so OSR, it's all about kind of telegraphing danger and giving clues about potential danger and stuff like that, giving players information that they can make clever decisions off of. In that situation, though, I was just unsure about how you're supposed to telegraph that there's a spider there on the other side of this arch, other than really making a big deal about, oh yeah, you see an arch and you're approaching an arch. And it's like, okay, I mean, maybe they'd be wary of the arch if you kind of hammer it home, but if you just mention, okay, you're walking down a hallway and there's an arch up there and it's got like some serpent design on it or something like that, I mean, maybe really cautious players would think, oh, we better be careful with this arch. But I think a lot of people would be like, okay, that's cool, and they keep going. And so the obvious answer anytime you have any spiders is, well, there's webs. There's gonna be webs around. Oh, webs. Here's the problem. Crab spiders don't produce webs. They don't use webs to ambush or trap prey. Now, you could just hand wave that, because how many players are really gonna... I mean, most players aren't gonna be, well, what kind of spider is it? Like, they see the webs, and then they encounter the spider, and they're like, well, what kind of spider is it? Tell me what kind of spider it is. Is it a spider that produces webs? It's a crab spider? You fuck! Why are you making up all this bullshit? Crab spider, that's not going to really happen. It's never going to happen. Players don't ask what kind of spider it is. I mean, it's whatever. If they're in a fight with a spider, it's like, okay, well, kill the fucking spider, and it produces webs, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if we want to be accurate, crab spiders don't produce webs. So the one in the Hole in the Oak, I'm still not quite sure how to do it, but here I think it's much better. It's much clearer, much easier for me to run. It's just the door is ajar. So we have this ajar door. And I think pretty likely we'd be standing back. We'd be kind of standing off to the side here. Aran would use his longsword to like push the door all the way open. And we'd be leaning in to look in. And I don't know, it's a giant spider on the ceiling of this 20-foot by 20-foot room. And if we look, he's got the light on his shield, I feel like we'd probably see it. I think at the very least, I'd say that you'd see some sort of spindly legs. You'd have to like stick your head through the doorway to really see the whole thing, but you see some sort of, insectoid legs on the ceiling in the dim light. Like, okay, there's a giant spider sitting on the ceiling. You could just leave, but now the door is wide open and there is a spider in the room, and not many people, I think, would feel comfortable with that being like behind them as they continue through the dungeon in the dark. And to even further sort of mix it up, I would say on the ground, I'd describe the room. It's decorated in bas relief with images of the dead walking into the afterlife, but there's a skeleton in the corner, and there's a bag next to it that looks like it contains something. Like, oh shit. Now we got treasure in there. This is all very clear. This is a very clear-cut situation. So we have 4 knowledge, but, you know, what do we do? Well, again, the answer, I think, is prismatic armor. We know that it's almost certainly a spider or some sort of insect. It's on the ceiling, and prismatic armor is still terrifying to any wild animal or monster of low intelligence. So theoretically, if we just rush in there, this thing's gonna bolt. So I think the group would probably shift over towards this bricked up wall area, go towards this side, and, you know, Aran and Hrogar would have their weapons ready, just in case it tries to rush them or something. And then Treppa, this involves a lot of bravery on Treppa's part, of course, but she's gonna have to rush into this room, across to the other side of the room, and as soon as this thing sees her armor, it's going to be terrified. So it's not going to, like, jump on her or anything like that. It's going to be scurrying away. She just wants to be on the other side, so it'll scurry out through the door. And then ideally it'll scurry off into, I don't know, somewhere. There's a lot of open doors, there's cracks. It'll find, you know, usually the DM is not really going to keep track of where the giant spider is sitting. It's still in the dungeon. I mean, it could still appear, but yeah, it's not worth really tracking because there's so many fucking other creatures, especially in a dungeon of this size. If you're dealing with a very small dungeon, then yeah, it might be worth keeping track of it because it's much more likely to be encountered again. In our case, though, it's just gone, unless you want to chase after it. But again, technically, according to the rules, I'd say we defeat the spider again. We defeated the room and got the treasure. It's the same thing. So prismatic armor is proving to be exceptionally useful. I wouldn't have really guessed that much, but yeah, against wild animals and bugs and low intelligence and stuff, I assume... I don't know, do we think that also applies to, like, zombies? I don't think so. Skeleton zombies are usually immune to morale. They don't have emotions. So I don't think we'd count it for that. But, yeah, anything that has emotions and can feel fear is gonna feel fear. So that's what we do, and Treppa runs in there, and it terrifies the spider, and it's just trying to get away. I don't think that it would go towards the other group of humans, towards a dead end. That seems really unlikely. So, yeah, I think that just kind of ends the encounter. I don't know. Making it more involved than that seems pointless. There's no duration here for how long it's terrified for, or anything like that. I assume just, well, it can still see the prismatic armor. So, yeah, I think that's just it. I think it's gone. And I think we win. And it had 2 hit dice. That's worth 15, I think. $20. Giant spider, 20. And the treasure that we get in the bag, 163 EP. Now, I could pretty easily just change that to silver pieces, because I don't think... I mean, for one, we don't track EP, so I'd have to convert it anyways to silver. And that would be a lot of silver. Each one of those is 5. So it's like 800 some silver. Just like 80 gold. I guess maybe it's not bad. I guess maybe it's not bad. I wish they'd have... Oh, I guess they do. For every 100 coins you're carrying, it takes up a gear slot. Except the first 100 is free to carry. So every 100 after the first 100. So actually converting it to silver, kind of ridiculous, because that means this dude's carrying like 800 coins in a big pouch. But, I mean, how big is a coin, right? Because carrying around 800 pennies is not insane. Well, I mean, it is insane now, but, I mean, it's not an insane amount of weight or mass. Really? I don't know, actually. How much does a... let's go with a nickel. Let's go with how much does a nickel weigh? 5 grams. Okay. So that means 800 nickels would be, what? 400 grams? That's less than a pound. Yeah, I think it's fair. I imagine that silver coins and stuff like that weigh more than 5 grams of a modern nickel, but we'll stick with that. Okay, so 800 silver in this pouch, which technically, okay, well then we get into some real ridiculous nonsense then, because that's actually like 8 gear slots if we want to carry all these coins. I don't think I even kept track. I don't think I added the 120. So we're going to have just a lot of coinage that we have to carry. It's not really worth much. So all told, we have like 92 gold that we're carrying out of this dungeon, which is enough to buy someone chainmail and have 30 gold left over. So I guess it's a decent amount, but it's just a lot. It's a very dense way of carrying treasure out. It's not ideal. So you could convert some of this to gold instead. So if we converted the EP to gold, that would be, yeah, 80 gold pieces, which is far more compact to carry. And since Shadowdark largely operates on a gold standard anyways, I think it's reasonable. So let's say there's 82 gold pieces here. So I need someone to carry the 123 silver. And it actually automatically counts the gear slots for that. That's perfect. And then Iran can grab the 82 gold. So he'll add 83. All right, awesome. Big loot. So I'm going to add 82 gold pieces, which is 82 XP for the 4 of us if we bring it back out. So how much XP do we have total then? 94 plus 145. So, 240 or 230, something like that. Say 240, that's an easy number right now. So that's 60 XP for the 4 of us. Yeah, needless to say, this coinage is not really going to be a big factor here. We need something like 800 gold piece value crown or something. That's where you start to get into bigger numbers of XP. Conversely, let's say, that we translated this to Shadowdark XP and we weren't doing hunter mode or anything. I think basically we found like 2 XP worth of treasure. 123 silver is definitely just a 1 XP kind of thing. And then 82 gold is a decent amount, but I still am, yeah, I guess maybe that's worth 3 XP. Maybe. In which case you'd bump it up to, we'd have 4 XP at this point. But I think if we wanted to keep it somewhat consistent to, to straight up gold as XP. I feel like they'd both be 1 each. But I don't know. I gotta try and fucking find here. So a bag of gold is worth 1. A bag of silver is worth nothing. Oh, shit. So that 123 silver is not worth any XP. So technically, we'd only have 1 XP. Okay, well, I guess that's probably closer to what we actually have. So I suppose that's around the same. It's just more bookkeeping. But, you know, as time goes on, that'll get murkier and blah, blah, blah. And we're counting monsters as well, so... Alright, anyways. Good, good, good. I think we have to roll underclock for this room as well, though. 2. Boom, boom. Okay, one more crypt to go. A defiled crypt. The door to this crypt lies in pieces on the floor. There's a coldness to this room. The walls are decorated with faint and vandalized frescoes. A disturbed skeleton rests on a stone slab. There's a runic tablet on the floor. And the crypt contains the ghostly image of a phantom. Ah, phantom. Now, if we run it as is, well, it has no health, has no AC, and just causes fear. Very strange creature. Now, if we look at Shadowdark, I don't think it's going to be quite the same. Let me try and find phantom here. No phantom. No phantom. Okay, let's go with ghost. Let's just take a look at their ghost stats. Ghost. Level 6, 27 hit points, 13 AC. Only damaged by silver or magical sources, incorporeal, life drain, and can possess. This is a hefty threat. So, if you want to throw something pretty big, that would be your choice. Let me see if there's like a specter or something. There might be something that's not quite as terrifying. There's a shadow. There you go. 15 HP, 12 AC. Level 3. And does 2 touch attacks at +2, dealing 1d4 damage each, and draining. Target takes 1 strength damage. At 0 strength, they die and become a shadow. No mention of being impervious to anything or anything like that, even though it is literally a sentient shadow in the shape of a human. I feel like maybe it's a little sort of breaking away from tradition to not give it any sort of defensive stuff. Like, if you're not going to do, if you're going to make it vulnerable or able to be hit with normal weapons, you should at least make its AC something stupid, like 18 or something, to represent just, like, it being really hard to hit a shadow. But, I don't know. Obviously, they designed this for a reason, and it's a level 3 enemy. So, which is harder than anything else we fought. Because it does get 2 touch attacks, but honestly, 12 AC with 15 health, no other defensive abilities or immunities, it's probably going to die in just a couple hits. All right, so let's figure this out, because this is a potential encounter here that I might run. So the door here is shattered in pieces, but they can look into the room and they do see that there's a skeleton on a stone slab, and there's like a tablet covered in runes on the floor near the skeleton. And they can kind of feel coldness emanating from the room. So obviously it feels a little off. But they look in and, you know, they don't see anything. We don't really have any spells that are gonna clear out the room of anything horrible. So eventually someone's just gonna have to step in, and I guess it's gonna be Iran. So he walks in. weapons raised, shining shield blazing. And so now we have to decide a real good question. Does he get surprised by the shadow? And the surprise rules are pretty bare bone basic. It just the GM determines if any creatures are unaware of each other. That's it. I mean, you could make an intellect roll. It says detecting a hiding or sneaking creature requires the searcher to actively look or listen. I think he is actively looking or listening, but I don't know if he's... Yeah, I think we'd probably go with a wisdom check. That's what it says. So let's make a wisdom check, and we could make a dex check for the shadow instead of setting a base DC. So we'll just do a shadow stealth check here, d20 plus 2. Okay, so you got an 11, and then we'll make a wisdom check for Iran, which is 12, ever so slightly higher. So he does notice one of the, a shadow on the wall from his shield. The light creates a lot of shadows everywhere we go, but one shadow seems to be moving of its own accord. And then I think we'd go to combat. Basically, he canceled surprise from the shadow. He doesn't get a surprise turn or anything. I'm not going to go with, okay, what do you do? We just canceled the surprise. That's what that was. So now we go into combat. He still might get attacked right away, but at least he's going to get a turn either way. So, Rogar then gets to roll dex with advantage, 19. The shadow gets +2, 17. So sorry, you do not get to go first, my friend. And you might die before you get a turn. So, I don't think this is actually an undead creature, to be honest. I think, yeah. The book always points out if it's undead. So this is not an undead creature. Turn undead would not do anything. I don't know if you would tell the priest player that. If you'd specifically say, like, hey, this isn't an undead. I don't think you would. I think if they feel it's undead and they try it, go ahead. And then I would say, like, yeah, doesn't seem affected. And I think by and large, players probably would assume it's undead. So I'm going to actually waste it. I'm going to use it, even though I know it doesn't do anything. Okay, so we got a really good roll, unfortunately. But it's unaffected. Tripuz's going to use... I mean, fucking Daze seems awfully powerful against a single target. So I guess we'll use Daze on it. Success. Alright, so for 2 rounds, it cannot take any combat actions. They're not helpless and will defend themselves if attacked. Again, the sort of vague wording, I just think that means that they do get their AC and everything. So Iran then is going to charge in and try and strike this thing with his longsword. Miss. Rogar will do something very similar. 22 and 9 damage. So slices through the shadow and it now has like a very hazy, wavy figure to it. And it's its turn. It can't take any combat action. So I guess it's just gonna flee, right? I guess we'd roll a morale check. But chances are, yeah, okay, it's just gonna flee. So it flits into the darkness, away from everybody. Lives to die another day. And that's it. I mean, Daze is a third-party spell, so it's kind of tricky to judge the balance there. It's against a single target. It seems absurdly powerful. Yeah, because there's no save. It's just if you succeed on your casting check, which, I mean, wizards often do. It's a level 1 spell. I don't know, it seems pretty powerful based on what we've seen. So, I don't know. But yeah, encounter over. And that was a 3 hit dice creature, which according to Axe means that we'd get 50 XP for routing it. Who am I to argue? Unfortunately, there's nothing else in this room except for the runic tablets, where we have to find table 6 runic tablet, and we're gonna try and read it. Trepa's gonna try to read it because knows how to read runes. 12. Tablet provides history of Nurgle. What? Nurgle? Who the fuck? What? What? Nurgle. Okay, he's like a big figure among... So we're just gonna learn all about Nurgle. Quite an important figure within this dungeon. Yeah, he is pretty important. Probably all in the backstory of Barrowmaze. Cult of Nurgle, god of the underworld, appeared. Nurgle received a vision. He knew his sons Orcus and Set desired his throne and wanted to depose him as lord of the underworld. Nurgle commanded his evil cultists to drive the villagers off and occupy the labyrinth. You think I would just tell them this whole fucking... I don't think you'd tell them all this. You just know about Nurgle, the god of the underworld. And you'd know basic facts about it, right? You wouldn't... Surely you wouldn't know all that shit. Seems kind of big. History of Nurgle. And then another one provides the history of Set and Orcus. Yeah, I think you'd know maybe like the first part of the story, and that's about it. Alright, not bad, not bad. I like they had sprinkling lore throughout the dungeon, like fucking Dark Souls or something. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, but job done. And now we have to roll another underclock. 4. Boom. Getting pretty damn close. And I think my light is probably gonna wear off pretty soon. Because normally it would be like 6 turns. And if we count a room as a turn, we did what? Room 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. I mean, that's 5 right there. And then, so I think my light is going out. And we don't have another light. So we're going to have to spring up a torch. Oh, we got the lantern. Okay, so we're going to toggle that. All right, we're good then. And so we know as players, in a meta sense, that the underclock is very close to triggering. And we know that if we go back the way we came and want to continue down this hallway and blah, 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 it's probably going to trigger as we, like, enter another room or something. You don't really want that. That is not ideal. So what I think we probably do instead is go back into room number 9, drop the portcullis, you know, pull that down and put it into place, and then wait it out. And this is sort of the intent of the underclock system, which is definitely different compared to just random encounter checks, and you're never sure when it's going to happen, and that's why it's random. This is very different. This isn't a rest, per se. We're literally just waiting it out. And honestly, incidentally, we could search this room while we're in it, just because we're like, well, you know, we're here anyways, we may as well just look around. You never know. Okay, yes, so here it addresses this. Doesn't this allow players to game the system? If the underclock gets down below 6, won't they just hunker down somewhere safe until it goes below 0? Yes, of course. The players will be more cautious when the clock is low and slightly bolder when the clock is fresh. That's kind of the point. There's a texture to time that didn't exist before. The players are supposed to be fully aware of it because it's a tangible and fluctuating measure of risk. And the characters are supposed to be fully aware of it because they all develop heart murmurs when they draw the underworld's attention. If the players hunker down somewhere safe to let the clock expire, consider it an organic replacement for the exhaustion mechanic that you see on overloaded encounter die mechanics. Okay, well now I need to know what that means. Because he provided a link here. Okay. Choosing to rest... Okay, so this is the overloaded encounter die mechanic, I guess, that he linked. Choosing to rest causes you to roll an extra event dice the next turn, abstractly representing weariness, time elapsing in rest, and being an easy target / causing attention when resting. So am I to interpret that as meaning that the next time I roll an underclock after they rest, I'm rolling twice? No, hold on. I think there's more to it. Because that's instead of taking a point of exhaustion. So I still need to figure out what exhaustion is, which I think is a concept in some games, but... Hold on, now I'm really getting... So, D&D has exhaustion as a condition. Which I'm sure most of this is... I don't know. This is based more on OSR than 5th edition D&D. Exhaustion in 5th edition is measured in 6 levels. First level, you have disadvantage on all ability checks. Second, your speed is halved. Third, disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws. Fourth, hit point maximum halved. Blah blah blah. So they're saying instead you're making the choice between resting or taking a point of exhaustion. And if we look at Axe specifically, as we like to do, basically in that one, for every 5 turns that you spend delving into a dungeon, you have to spend 1 turn resting. Otherwise, you start taking fatigue. You become fatigued. Because that really forces players to rest or desperately push on because they need to finish something up before they can leave or whatever. If there's a time crunch. I wish Shadowdark had an exhaustion mechanic, but I mean, it would be pretty easy to adapt that. Well, okay, so it comes down to this. Do you want to have a mechanical incentive or mechanical, like, encouragement to get your players to rest instead of continuing on and on? Or is the incentive to rest just part of players' own decision-making on their own? Like, they want to rest because they want to rest. Do you want to abstract in a fatigue system that kind of forces them to rest or heavily encourages it? The idea of the fatigue system and forcing a rest every so often or something like that is to sort of prevent just like, I don't know, an unrealistic dungeon delve, I guess, of just like, well, we're gonna keep dungeon delving for like 6 hours today. And it's like, that is really not realistic with how stressful and strenuous this activity is. Because players don't really want to rest in a dungeon. It's not pleasant, and there's random encounters and blah, blah, blah. But there should also be penalties for, like, continuing to leave the dungeon and come back. And the Underclock does this by lowering the treasure values, but I think that's really sort of just weird and gamey, and I don't care for that much. Nor do I want to do the math. And so forcing the players to rest every once in a while means that, like, okay, well, you could go all the way back out of the dungeon, but that's going to take time and effort and strain, and you're going to be, like, fatigued on the way out because you're not resting, and it's just as strenuous to go back the way you came. Well, maybe not quite as, but I'm still going to be rolling random encounter checks, and you're going to be fatigued and blah, blah, blah. What we're looking at, though, is not necessarily about the resting, even though that is somewhat a part of this. What we're looking at with the Underclock is players bunkering down because they know an encounter is imminent, which is somewhat similar, but not quite the same. And I think that's what Goblin Punch is going at. Is that this is a more organic replacement for, like, the every hour you gotta rest, you know, because otherwise you're gonna get exhausted. Instead of that, players are choosing to bunker down and essentially rest for 10 minutes or something because they know an encounter is near, and the encounter still happened. I think that's what he's trying to say there. And I think that's probably why the Underclock kind of works with that. It's like, yes, it is gamey in the sense that players know an encounter is near, and they're trying to bunker down to prevent being screwed over by the random encounter. But it's basically just replacing a system where players would bunker down because they're going to be exhausted otherwise and they got to rest for 10 minutes. Either way, players are bunkering down and trying to find a safe location. It's just the reason why is different. And whereas if you bunker down because you're resting to avoid exhaustion, and you would roll random encounter checks to see if they get ambushed or whatever, here you're just guaranteeing the encounter because that's why they're bunkering down. And it allows them a bit more agency because they know that there's going to be some sort of encounter. But it's still, the Underclock allows for possibilities of them getting ambushed, you know, because of the exploding D6 thing. I mean, as we saw, it's very possible to go from 11 down to 0 or something. Or, 10 down to -1 and have a random encounter when you don't expect it. So, yeah, I think that's all pretty good and correct. So yes, we're going to bunker down in room number 9, close the portcullis, and we're gonna wait out the encounters. So we're gonna actually sit here and search the room, because we gotta spend whatever 10 minutes or whatever. Again, it's gonna be gamey, and that's because this is a fucking game. If you want a very non-gamey system, you have to simulate kind of everything very realistically. In which case, I'll direct you over to the Adventurer Conqueror King system. But yeah, so we're gonna search the room. And in this case, since we're actively searching the room, we're gonna find the secret door. But I don't think we opened the secret door yet, because we're also waiting for this random encounter, which may or may not come, because we're gonna roll a d6 and we got a 1, so it's down to 3, which means that we get the omen, the clue, a shadowing event as they call it. So I'm gonna roll the random encounter, and then as the DM here, try and come up with like a clue as to what that encounter is going to be, that imminent encounter. And then at that point, the players are bunkered down and waiting, so there's not much point in just like dragging it out. You can just move on to the encounter. So let's go up to our random encounter. It's a d12, and my cat continues to be in my way. So it's a 5, and we got mongrel men, 1d6 mongrel men. What are mongrel men, and why are they here? What do they want? Let's see. Alright, so mongrel men are... They have AC of 6, which is like a 13. 1 hit die, so it's going to average out to 5 hit points. They do 1d6 damage. Pretty basic little, you know, your standard sort of humanoid enemy, basically. But the mongrel men of Barrowmaze are adept at listening, mimicry, and camouflage. There's only 1 on d6 chance that this group will be surprised, unless the PCs are extremely disciplined with their noise and light. If caught unaware, mongrel men will camouflage themselves as rubble piles and attack. Camouflage themselves as rubble piles? Their abominable appearance belies their intelligence. If the PCs can somehow speak with them, they may impart information about the dungeon for their freedom. Okay. Do you have like a general description of... No, you don't? Oh, here we go. They are descendants of the human tribes that once lived near the Barrowmoor. They were enslaved by the cult of Nurgle, and their bodies have been twisted and mutated through exposure to the pit of chaos. They now eke out their existence in small groups. Blah, blah, blah. Necromancers capture, torture, or charm them for information and send them forth to loot crypts and gather resources. Okay, so they speak kind of their own language, their own very tribal language. But they are not stupid, and their leaders are quite intelligent. Okay. So, let's figure out how many there are in this pack. 3? Okay. And we have to figure out what's the clue. In this case, it might not matter much about the clue. Since the encounter is going to happen like right afterwards anyways. But yeah, I mean, it could give players some sort of indication of what they might want to do in response. So these things are pretty stealthy. They're adept at listening and camouflaging themselves and mimicry and stuff. So they're not likely to be especially noisy. And we're not being especially quiet here. So if they know that we're in here and we don't know that they're out there, I don't know what exactly clues we might get. Other than maybe like, I don't know, a smell? I can't imagine they're especially clean. And they can be intelligent and adept at camouflage as much as they want. I feel like they still kind of smell. So that's about the best clue that I could offer, is that, yeah, there's an aroma drifting down the hallway of just like unwashed men. Just, you know, unclean body odor. That's about the best that I could offer. And they might be very quiet when they smell that, but I don't think they're going to hear anything. Maybe I'd allow wisdom rolls with disadvantage. I guess that's what I would do. I'd allow like one wisdom roll with disadvantage if somebody wanted to roll. So we'll let Yuri roll critical failure. So no, we don't hear anything, and we like sneeze or something. You know, we just make some noise. So we're definitely, yeah. They know we're here. Alright, so now the underclock's going to tick by again. So we're sitting here with bated breath. And we got 3, so it actually... So technically it goes to 0, and then it would bounce back to 3 and be another clue. But at a certain point, if the players want an encounter to happen, like, we don't need to keep dragging this out. Although it does kind of matter, because that keeps counting time down for your lights. But it's also not very interesting, so I'm not the type of player to bother too much. I'd probably fudge the D6 roll there a little bit. Alright. So we encounter these 3 mongrel men. The portcullis there is closed, right? And we're kind of waiting. We got our weapons ready. We're not making a big racket. And I think the mongrel men would kind of peek around the corner a little bit. They'd look in, and they would see that this portcullis is down, and they see light in there and stuff. And this is very curious. But the question is still, like, what do the mongrel men fucking want? Their bodies have been twisted and mutated, and they eke out in existence. They're sent in to loot crypts and gather resources. So they really probably do not like the necromancers whatsoever. Probably big hatred, and the leaders of the mongrel men want to free their people from the yoke of the necromancers' oppression. So okay. Problem is they're basically like cavemen. They're like mutated cavemen slaves. But they do have some freedom to go out into the crypts here to try and find resources and loot and stuff. The question I have is, would they approach this portcullis for any reason? Doesn't even really say what they're armed with or anything. Oh, their main goal is survival and avoiding the necromancers of Set. That's their main goal. Survival means that they probably don't have much interest in fighting if they can help it. Right? So Yeah, I don't even know if we have much of an encounter here, to be honest. And that's the thing when players bunker down and you get a random encounter. And it kind of makes me want to look up. Mm-hmm. Tricky. What I'm looking for is like what people do in any other OSR game if players are resting in a very secure room and they get a random encounter roll. It says, this person says if they roll a random encounter, the creature tries to get into the room. Maybe dozens will pass by the closed door, but maybe that one orc tries to find out why it's barred shut. Maybe they go away, maybe they try to break it. Kind of depends on the creature. I think, yeah, I guess a lot depends on the room that they're in, the safety of the situation they're in, and the random encounter that they roll. Because here you have a portcullis, right? It's open. It's like an open barred, you know, sort of gate. It's not a sealed off door or anything. So depending on what you roll, you know, maybe you get like fire beetles or something that can just sort of scurry in or shoot fire. I don't know. Or maybe you got some sort of creature that's just going to wait it out. Like maybe you get zombies or something that are just going to be like trying to reach through the bars. And obviously you would just shoot them or something like that. But maybe you get tomb robbers that are not pleasant and they see a bunch of sitting ducks inside this room and they start like shooting arrows in or something like that, you know? I think a lot depends on the type of creature you roll. But I also don't think that a random encounter should ever just be nothing. I don't think it should just be like, well, you really outsmarted me. I guess nothing happens. I don't think it should always be hostile or dangerous or a big threat or anything, but I don't think it should just be nothing, because that's boring. So in our case, we have the mongrel men. They want to avoid the door. They want to avoid combat or something like that, but they do, I think they are curious enough to maybe poke in or maybe look in or something like that. So I think the players are going to be very intently watching the portcullis here. And I would say that while watching it, they kind of see like half of a face, like peer across, you know, around the corner looking in. And they see just like a disfigured face and like a bloodshot eye just like turn around the corner a little bit and peek in before quickly pulling back. And that, you know, that gets players kind of like, oh shit, you know, oh shit. Because there's something out there. It's something with eyes. They're probably not gonna like the look of it. They're gonna shout at it or something like that. And the mongrel men are skilled at mimicry, so maybe they would repeat back exactly what they're shouted at in like the same voice. Really just unnerve the players a bit, you know. And then you could just have the mongrel men after that leave. Like, they're like, well, you know, fuck this. They got a lot of weapons and armor and shit. They'll just leave. But then the players will continually be very concerned when they have to go out of their safe, secure room as to what's going to be waiting out there. I think that's what you do in a situation like that. And so the underclock went down, the random encounter happened. There was still a lot of potential for danger there. But no matter what, the situation has changed slightly. It has affected the players in some way. So that's how I would roll that. For our purposes playing solo, yeah, I can't really represent my characters being intimidated or scared or worried or anything. So there's not much I can do with it. But I think still, it's a good little DM lesson there. All right, but I guess the question is, how long would they wait then, with the creepy face looking in at them or something like that? There's a secret door here that they found that I guess they want to poke into, because maybe there's like another way out, then they wouldn't have to go into the portcullis there. we'll roll that way. So they want to try and get out of this room some other way. So Aran's going to open the secret door here and check out what we find, which is number 10. Room is filled with small octagonal-shaped alcoves. A group of zombies huddled together in the corner. Turn as the PCs enter and attack. Alright, straight into combat. No ifs, ands, or buts about this one. So, let's look at the zombie stat block in Shadowdark. Level 2. 8 AC. Which I'll note is also what it says there for Barrowmaze, but pretty certain this is descending AC for Barrowmaze. I just made that assumption. Yeah, because these mongrel men are AC 6. That's definitely not going to be ascending AC. So, so the 8 AC in Shadowdark is an actual 8 AC ascending. Whereas here, the zombies' 8 AC is 11 ascending. So a bit different, but 2 hit dice means that their health of 11 is about the same there. They get a +2 on the attack roll, which they don't get in old school rules. And they do 1d6 damage compared to 1d8. So it's a horse apiece. They're more likely to hit in Shadowdark, but they do less damage. They're immune to morale checks, and if they're reduced to 0 HP by a non-magical source, they get a DC 15 con check to go to 1 HP instead. So they are harder to actually kill. Yeah, we'll run the Shadowdark zombie. It's fine. So, but again, Shadowdark balanced rules, we would only have 2 of these, and that would be a balanced encounter. Compared to 6 of them in the module. They are... no, I guess maybe we'll go with the Barrowmaze numbers, because of the 6 of them. They're less likely to hit, they're more damaging if they do, but they are easier to kill. Not easier to hit, but easier to kill. And we'll just average it out to 11 hit points, even though the average of 2d8 is 9. But we'll go with 11. Okay. Combat initiates. No. Zombies in Shadowdark have a -2 dex, so we'll just go with that. Rogar gets advantage. Crit. That means we get a luck token. I'm going to give it to Yuri, because we definitely want to use that for Cure Wounds. To reroll any failures there. We want to have that spell for as long as possible. So we're definitely going first. I don't really even need to roll. Yep, definitely not. And we got 6 zombies. So again, we probably want to do like door strats here. hold the door and keep fighting. You know, we can swap back and forth. Oh, that's another thing I noted in Tales of Argosa is that there is opportunity attacks. Like every creature can make an op if an enemy moves out of their melee reach, which is pretty significant. Changes a lot of gameplay encounters and, you know, combat encounters. But here we don't have that, so we're gonna hold the line and I guess Aran will he can either defend or like ready in action. I guess he'll ready in action to strike at the first zombie that comes in range. Yuri, however, is going to be turning undead against all their asses. Here we go. 15. Perfect. And there's 6 of them, and they have to make a charisma check, which their charisma is -3 in Shadowdark. So this is going to be 6 d20s, -3 across the board. They rolled pretty well. Remember, if they fail by 10 or more and are equal to or less than your level, they are not equal to or less than our level. So none of these can be instantly destroyed. But that means that with -3, every single one of them failed. Yeah, every single one of them failed. Okay, so now I need to figure out what happens then. What I want to know is, how do you handle fleeing? Is it just they're terrified, they're trying to flee into the corner? Again, I mean, Axe just is so much clearer about it. Actually, I'm kind of curious to look at Tales of Argosa again to see how they handle it. And I suppose we have time for me to possibly do that, so hold on. That's with the assumption that they have a turn undead, but I mean, how can you have an OSR game or like a fantasy RPG with clerics and not have turn undead? It's just a staple. Alright, so let's look here. I don't believe it's a core aspect of the cultists. I don't think they get it automatically. Oh no, they can. So they get a bunch of different blessings. And one of the possible ones is turning. Target's hit dice are less than half your level, they are destroyed. Targets with HD equal to or lower than your level gain a luck will save to resist fleeing for 1d6 times 10 minutes. Targets with more hit dice than you are unaffected. Ooh, okay, it wouldn't even work in that case here. Fleeing for 1d6 times 10 minutes. Ooh, doggy. Now, again, though, fleeing is just so vague. really answer what it means to flee. Okay, so then let's compare it to Axe, right? Lovely, lovely Axe. And look at our Crusader for rebuking undead. So we have our big chart depending on the type of undead. Blah, 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 blah. And let's assume that we succeed a bunch of old pack of zombies, and we roll enough hit dice to affect all 6 of them, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, we did the same thing. We succeeded by the same margin. Rebuked undead become frightened for 10 rounds, 1 turn, during which time they must flee from the Crusader at running speed. If they cannot flee, they cower in terror until they can flee or until the condition ends. If the Crusader attacks rebuked undead in melee combat, the rebuking effect is broken, but he can use spells or missile weapons against them, and other characters can attack them in any fashion without breaking the rebuking effect. Destroyed undead are immediately turned to ash. I'm pretty sure it means destroyed if you destroy them automatically on the roll. So let me look up one more thing, and that's turning undead in first edition AD&D, which is often kind of based on. Yeah, I think this is largely just the first edition AD&D rules. Pretty similar. They will flee the area for 3 to 12 rounds. That's it. Okay, so this is much more specific, much clearer, and we all understand exactly how it works. There's no ambiguity here, right? So I think I would just state the same exact rules. I would just say, like, okay, well, actually, I would just say, like, well, they didn't print the rest of the rules in Shadowdark, but here are the actual rules. They have to flee for 10 rounds, or they cower in terror, and if you strike them in melee, you break the effect, but anyone else can strike them in melee, or you can use spells or missile weapons. Blah, blah, blah. I agree that a lot of the time it's not as important because they're going to be fleeing from you for 5 rounds, right? And they're just going to be running, and they're running away from you and terrified of you and blah, blah, blah. But what if there's a situation like this where they cannot get out? They cannot flee, you know? And I think in a case like this, where you successfully turn the entire encounter, you cause all the undead in the encounter to flee, and they can't run away, they're like trapped in an enclosed room, I think you just win. You just put them all to the sword and they all die. That's it. I mean, why make it more complicated than that? It was a really good roll and everything was good and successful, and you trounced them. This is the value of having a fucking priest in your corner. I mean, yeah, we only rolled a 10. It's just that zombies are especially bad at resisting. I think they're worse than skeletons. Yeah, skeletons have a -1. So, definitely worse than skeletons. It's a powerful ability if you're going into a location with a lot of undead. And so Barrowmaze is a very potent place to have a priest. There's no doubt about it. And specifically if you're in a situation with only undead enemies of a single type like this, and they're zombies and they can't flee from you. Yeah, so we'll just do it. It's done. We beat the zombies. So that's 6 zombies, and they're hit dice 2 creatures, so that's 20 XP each. That's pretty good. That's 120 XP there. That's not bad. Get more XP from killing stuff than actual treasure. This is wild. So combat heavy. But then the burial alcoves. This is the real treasure now. Okay, so you have to spend 1 turn per character to search 10 of them. And I assume there's no rule here for partial searches, right? How much you find if you only spend time to search half the alcoves. So it's really just how much time is it going to take you to search all the alcoves to get the treasure. There's no partial rewards here. All right, that's it. That's the rule. You have to live with it. It's all or nothing. So in our case, let's see here. We want to fully search this whole room. That is going to take 4 turns? Yikes. Because that's 40 per turn. 40, 80, 120, 160. So yes, 4 turns in order to fully search the alcoves. And I'm pretty sure not every alcove has treasure. In fact, a bunch of them don't have any treasure. So it is a gamble that you're taking that won't pay off until it's all done, I guess. Unless you really want to calculate and divide amongst the alcoves and do something like... I mean, it's just... I think the intent is you have to search the whole thing, and it's a lot of time. And this encourages a lot of encounter rolls. So I guess we're going to do it. I got to roll a d6 because we went into this room. So that's down to 15 already. The portcullis is still closed, and there's no way out of here. So I guess it is what it is. And this is a good situation. Keeping in mind that depending on the encounter that we roll, like if we encounter tomb robbers or something like that, they could just open the portcullis. But yeah, so we're going to spend 4 turns here. So 4d6. First one, down to 11. Second one, down to 6. Third one, down to 5. Fourth one, boom, encounter. So we get our loot, but we are going to have another encounter. Alright. So the loot that we get to finally grab after spending 40 minutes searching through here. I feel like my oil is almost used up. We get 94 silver and a silver bracelet for 20 gold. So 94 silver, silver bracelet, 20 gold pieces. And 90 silver is 9 gold, so this whole room has been worth 149 XP. Divided among 4. Not spectacular. Less than 40 XP per person. But at the same time, it was pretty easy, depending on what this random encounter is going to be. So this is going to occur kind of while we're searching, I think. While we're searching, or right as we finish searching and we gather up all our loot. One of the two. Towards the end. I gotta add the 94 silver to somebody. I guess it'll go to Horogar again. 94, math, that's 77, 27? So 227, I think? Okay, fine. It's got a lot of silver on him. Alright, let's roll our random encounter. D12. 4. Giant rats, 2d6. Okay, I think in this case, there is a hole in this wall. It wasn't in 9, and had we not opened up the secret door, this wouldn't have come in. Because the reason it wasn't in 9 is because I feel like that would have been kind of bullshit. as a DM. If I said, oh, yes, you're in this nice sealed room, but oh, there's a giant hole in the wall you didn't notice, you stupid fucks. It's like, no, that's mean as a DM. But in this case, they opened up another secret room, and there I can have a bit more leeway to kind of pull something like that. So, yes. Entering into the room from the southern wall here. I mean, fuck it, they don't know the map. You could just say it's the eastern wall. Whatever. Fine, make it the eastern wall. That way you don't have to explain room number 8 or anything. So, from the eastern wall, scurry 2d6 giant rats. 7 of them. So they're kind of drawn a little bit to the noise here. They start scurrying into the room. Let's roll a reaction roll. 2d6. 6 is, according to Shadowdark, hostile. So they are starving and they see food in here. Combat initiates. There is a price to pay for searching for treasure. So Hirogar rolling with advantage, blah blah blah. 19, they get to roll. Depending on their dex, I don't think they have a +3 though, so we're probably fine because we would win on tie by having the smaller group. Let's find giant rat, Rathgamon, rat giant, level 1. 5 HP, 11 AC. +1 dex. So we go first. Trepa is going to immediately slap on her prismatic armor, which has worn off at this point. Cast spell, normal. Success, perfect. And roll a d6, 3. It terrifies them. Encounter over. Right? I mean, come on. Come on. If we're gonna follow this and be consistent with it, I mean, that ends the encounter, right? They scurry back in their hole and it's over. How else am I going to interpret terrified on a rules-limited system? I mean, you could make it, like, frightened and they suffer, like, a -2 on their attack rolls if they want to attack Trepa. I guess you could do it that way, but that doesn't seem to be in the spirit of Shadowdark. So, yeah. I don't know. I guess that's the way it is. It seems potentially too powerful, depending on what you're encountering. I don't know. I did not expect at all prismatic armor to be my single most useful spell. It's just as good as turn undead, I guess. It's like the mage turn undead. I don't know. I mean, does anyone disagree with me here that this is just ridiculous and too powerful and blah blah blah? Again, I would say, look at Turn Undead. Turn Undead is very official. This is a very official Shadowdark mechanic. How is that any less powerful? Turn Undead can easily end an entire encounter, as we just saw. Whether we put them all to the sword or the zombies actually fled into the darkness and ended the encounter that way. Either way, the encounter was basically over. By all intents and purposes. So I don't see why prismatic armor should be much different, because there is a high risk with prismatic armor. If I roll a 5 or 6 on that d6, they're all attracted to Trepa, and they're all going to focus on Trepa. That's a big risk with a 33% chance. And you could have failed to cast the spell in general. So, I don't know. I mean, it seems relatively okay. Yeah, prismatic armor tends to affect potentially more types of creatures, but we are in the Barrowmaze, which is largely undead. So, you know. It just so happened this entry, hallway, and area stuff kind of has had a lot of animals and wild creatures and stuff. So, I don't know. I'm counting it as a win. Because really, normally, we wouldn't actually be counting XP or anything for scaring away these rats. So, if you were playing normal Shadowdark rules, where just treasures are counting as XP, you'd get this random encounter, the rats would come in, Trapa would do the prismatic armor, scare them all away, and everyone would be like, yeah, fuck yeah. Beat that encounter, no problem. And then that would be it. There would be no real benefit to scaring them away compared to slaughtering them, unless you really want to fight stuff. And so it would just be like, yeah, awesome, nice use of magic, yeah, excellent. It's just here, we're actually counting XP, so, not much, though. There was 7 of them. So 7 rats is 35 XP. That's nothing. You know, divided among 4, you're looking at what, 8? Like 8 XP out of 2,000. It's like, whatever. It's very negligible. So I think that's perfectly legit and fine and done. So, yeah, we've had 2 encounters in this little section, and we managed to make it through both unscathed. It is important to remember that the armor is active, and it's impossible to be hidden. So, you know, there's that. But we also have a light going from our lantern, so we're not especially stealthy most of the time anyways. Alright, so we've got our treasure. I should add the bracelet. So I guess Trapa can take the bracelet. Silver bracelet worth 20 gold pieces. I really like that. And then you can just click the sell button when you get to town. Although, yeah, well, it's going to sell it for full value, but treasure usually sells for full value in these kind of games. So we're all good. All right, I think that's going to end it for today. We'll lift up the portcullis, you know, and poke our heads out to see if the mongrel men are there, but they're not. And that's all good. But we're going to end here and pick it up from there. Look, okay, so we can see now how much we have explored. This has been across, what, like 3 hours or so? 3 hours or so of gameplay. That's what we've gotten to solo. Whether solo is faster or slower than playing in a group, I don't know. I'm not really sure. It might actually be slower. But yeah, needless to say, it's a massive dungeon for most groups, and it's going to take many sessions to get through. What are my thoughts so far? I kind of dig it. Yeah, I kind of dig it. I think it telegraphs dangerous locations fairly well. I think there's definitely some interesting touches. I like the idea of the mongrel men and some of the faction play involved. We only have really encountered one trap so far, which was the ceiling wall area. And I thought that was pretty good. Kind of unique and not just like save or die. Like there is a chance for you to hold off the skeletons until they can figure out and get in there to help. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, so far I think it seems pretty well put together, but obviously we haven't experienced much. And I'm enjoying it, so I'm kind of definitely interested in putting this in my other campaign for my family to start crawling through. That slow realization that they might have that this dungeon is way bigger than they think. Yeah. They're definitely the type that's more like, well, let's just get the fuck out of here then. So I don't think they'll ever get through the whole dungeon or anywhere close to it. I think they'll just leave and go somewhere else. When, you know, and oh god, this is a dungeon that I absolutely am so glad that I have like a monitor and I can slowly reveal rooms. Because if I had to describe a section like this to them and they're trying to map out all the doors and stuff, it would just be nightmarish. Like, just absolutely nightmarish. Let me just look real quick at the other one, because I just want to see how they handle secret doors. Okay, yeah, so it is a solid wall. So then when you reveal a room like this, they would just see that. They would have no reason to think that there's anything on the other side. It's just, what the fuck are these skulls and stuff? Yeah, that's very nice. And then you'd reveal this hallway here, and they would see just wall, wall, and they would see this is broken in, and they would see that from down the hall, so they'd be like, oh shit. Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, these are definitely the maps I'm going to use for them. Yeah, okay, very good. Very, very good. Yeah, and then, oh, look at this. This map has webs. It's a crab spider. It doesn't produce webs. Wrong. No. But yeah, I mean, I guess if the ajar door isn't enough to tip things off, then it's like, okay, if you peer in, you'd also see a skeleton and webs and stuff, and really hammer it home, I suppose. For my group, that's not that bad of a thing. So, all right. Anyways, that's where we're going to leave it off for today. So my name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Mang with Shadowdark and Barrowmaze. I'll see you fine folks in the next part.